I'm High Treason, and today we're going to take a look at the system that is the winner of last time's vote. It wins by an amazing 1 vote. So yeah, quite a lot of people did respond to that though. So obviously this is quite divided, but hey, we will take a look at the other one later. So probably not next, but certainly later. Much rather I looked at that XPS, but yeah, probably not. Anyway, yeah, this is the winner this time. Jeez, man. Yeah, check that out. It's doing my arm in. But yeah, that is the winner of the vote we had last time. And now we can see the case in a lot more detail, which you'll be seeing from a different angle now. I can't. And it's, well, it's a big case. It has a Toshiba logo on it. And before I open it up, I've got to say, massive props to this guy right here. Because he recognised the font used by the VGA bias to display the error message in the last video. And the only reason I didn't give it to him was because he missed 2 letters off the end. It might be a bit unfair of me, that. Because this is a T3200SX made by Toshiba. I suppose it's worth noting that there are 3 different versions of Toshiba's T3200 out there. The original, simply labelled T3200, has a 286 processor running at 12 MHz and an EGA video adapter with a slightly lower resolution plasma display. Otherwise it's near enough the same machine, has very similar features. The SX I have uses a 386SX, probably where it gets the name from, at 16 MHz, and lastly there is an SXC, which is basically the same as this one, but it has a colour display panel on it. So yeah, there's a few different models. This thing is heavy though, it's really heavy. There's a lot of metal in the construction. It's not a laptop as such, I guess. It's probably too large to fit in that classification, and also it has no battery. The screen lifts up by pressing in these 2 small sprung latches. There are also springs which hold the screen a little way above the keyboard. They seem to be strong enough that they would probably help stop the screen from slamming shut destructively if it was knocked over. The first thing I really have to say on the looks of this thing though is it looks awesome. You tell me this wouldn't look right at home in a futuristic sci-fi from the 80s or 90s. And that's back when sci-fi in the future looked awesome instead of being all white paint and glass and Will Smith's iRobot kind of crap. You know, it's bloody boring. The future used to look awesome, it just looks crap now. The screen is nice and big and it has a brightness adjustment port on the side, which is potentially useful. The keyboard layout looks usable enough. It even has a keypad, but no dedicated cursor keys. That's my only real gripe with that, but you can use the keypad for that, so at least there's a way to do it. The back of the system has the regular COM ports, parallel port and VGA, and this was pretty much mandatory at the time. Well, except the VGA port, there were still quite a few machines that didn't have those. The parallel port doubles as an interface for the external floppy drive Toshiba sold. Also a power switch and regular C13 power connector can be found here, just like the one on your PC. This spot is for a proprietary Toshiba expansion card at the bottom there, that little panel that comes off. I'm unsure of its function. I think it was for an expansion chassis that allowed you to put 5 8-bit ISA cards in. Obviously I'm not using that, and I actually couldn't right now, even if I did have something to install in there for reasons that will become clear shortly. The right hand side of the machine has a piece of plastic over the keyboard port. I've heard of a few of them coming like this, and there's actually been a keyboard port installed behind there. Mine does have one, so I'm starting to think maybe they were all like that. You'd better check before you rip that off though if you have one of these. You don't want holes that go nowhere in the case. It's easy to find out, as you can see there, it's easily visible from in the back of the machine. Next to that is the reset switch. That does what one would expect it to do, and it makes the machine reboot. It's nice of them to have it in that hole, so you can't press it by accident, but inversely, if you wanted to press it on purpose, you'd need something to push in there, which can be a bit annoying. This switch tells the system what the LPT port is doing, either set to a regular port or else to use floppy A or B as the external drive. Above that is the internal drive. It's a 1.44 MB diskette drive. The last remarkable thing here is rather unremarkable, and it's easy to miss. You might have noticed there's a tiny little slot in the case there, and there's a metal loop that flips out from underneath. You can lock the machine to your desk with it if you want to, so it's probably the forerunner of the Kensington port that you pretty much are guaranteed to have on your laptop today. The front makes the right decision and has absolutely nothing on it, which, as we already know, is a good thing. Huh? The fuck? Stupid thing! Left of the machine is a vent which the hard drive lives behind, as well as a hole for the modem. I don't have a modem on mine. Well, don't really need a modem. Now, there's a door here, and that's a funny little thing, that. Why would that be there? Well, now, those look oddly familiar, don't they? It's almost like this thing's capable of taking regular expansion cards or something. I won't pull this thing to pieces too much, but I don't really need to for the more interesting stuff to be visible. There are 4 screws which allow you to remove the keyboard, and behind the keyboard is a metal shield held in with 2 screws, which covers 30-pin SIM/RAM modules. I have 5 megabytes of memory installed total. There is 1 megabyte built into the machine. The keyboard controller's in a socket down there, and that shows you that it's from before the price of machines began falling off. Back then it was actually cheaper to repair a failed device than it was to replace the whole thing. So socketed chips used to be very, very common back then, as computers were incredibly expensive. This Eeprom is not an original part, and it contains VGA BIOS for the Paradise VGA chip and the system BIOS. It's a weird version I'm experimenting with that combines the VGA BIOS from ROM3i, which my laptop came with the older system BIOS from ROM3C, which I got hold of thanks to Oliver's website. Why not go and check that out? I'll leave a link in the description. For those who aren't familiar with all the programmable ROMs, the Eeprom with 1 E was effectively the forerunner of the Eeprom with 2 E's. Eeprom stands for Electronically Programmable Read-Only Memory. Eeprom with 2 E's stands for Electronically Erasable Programmable Read-Only Memory. Are you still with me on this? Well, as you can gather, the older technology can't actually be erased through the use of electronics, and therefore you can't reflash it while it's inside the computer. To work with these, you're going to need a couple of tools, notably an Eeprom Programmer, a bit like the cheap TL866 that I've got. It's not a bad programmer, that. If you are looking for one, why not look at one of those on eBay? Not very expensive. You can use any UVC lamp, but I got this cheaper, and it's basically just a box with a germicidal lamp on a timer. If you're going to play with this stuff, don't ever look at the lamp when it's on. You can go blind. UVC's generally not good for you. The ROM is erased in there by the UVC penetrating the quartz window. Ooh, I said penetrating. And then causing the electrical charges inside the chip to dissipate. As sunlight and whatnot do affect the chip over time, you should probably cover that window with foil tape or something when you don't want to erase it anymore. There is a socket in these machines for a coprocessor, and I absolutely hate empty sockets. They got on my nerves. So I plugged this T3200SX one in. It's only running at 16 MHz in here because that's the system clock, but it was the cheapest one on eBay at the time. Under the screen there's a whole load of nothing much of interest. The hard drive's in there. It's the 500 MB Quantum Maverick. It's actually Hooker's old drive because she's using a compact flash card now, because this hard drive did cause a bottleneck in there. It's fast enough for this machine though, because obviously they're a whole world apart performance wise. Obviously the floppy drive is under there as well. It uses a smaller interface cable than usual. It actually looks a bit like the header for a parallel port, which makes you wonder with the external floppy connecting to one. In fact, some versions of the T3200 even had a proprietary hard drive interface, which is really stupid because Toshiba loved these cheese pizza drives, and those things didn't last 5 minutes. I've never seen a working one. This isn't the one out of this machine. It's actually from another old Toshiba I had to fix years ago. Never seen a working Carnaud drive. Most BIOS versions didn't support any other drive than the 2 that Toshiba specified. None of them really do, but what I mean by that is most of them, such as 3i, won't let you ignore the resulting error message. You can't boot the machine from the hard drive if it detects that it's the wrong drive. This is why I had to reflash my ROM. I have to use drive overlay software to make this drive work. It's limited to around 500 meg drives, this machine, due to some memory access limitation I can't be bothered to be technical about. At the back of the laptop, this panel can come off, followed by the metal one that's behind it. So the plastic one's probably just cosmetic. Behind that is the expansion area, and in here there are two ISA slots, one 8-bit and one 16-bit. There's also that Toshiba interface, which you can't use because the ISA cards get in the way. You can see the VGA chip and a few other things from here if you so desire. Very tight piece of film in that. Looking at the left hand side of this, it looks like something was meant to slot into here, doesn't it? That makes me wonder just what could you install in here other than what was in there. Very interesting. Because on the other side, one of those shields that I took out for the cards has that little piece on it. So most certainly that was designed to house a board or something. And if you look right down there, you can see the Intel 386SX16, which this one uses. I do wonder whether some of them had AMDs in, and the reason I didn't mention the processor earlier is because I wrote the script wrong, so I just omitted it and decided to add that now. The crystal for it's located there though, which does make you have to wonder, would you be able to overclock this if you replace that with a faster crystal, like a 40 MHz one? Probably still would run stably. I have a Sound Blaster Pro 2 installed, as well as a generic UK 0022 Ethernet card. It's a bit like the one that's built into the Leo. It's an NE2000 compatible. I removed its coax connector because it prevented me from closing the door, and my network hasn't been running any coax cable for about 3 years now. As we start the machine, I'm probably going to get an error message. I might get a serious one, because this older BIOS occasionally takes offence at the SIM RAM for reasons I don't really know. Toshiba probably changed something in the hardware somewhere. The CMOS setup is fine for a laptop, but you can see we are limited to only 40 megabytes and 120 megabytes for hard drives. The ones which Toshiba spec'd, mine came with a 120 megabyte model. Some BIOSes even have a routine which looks for the Carnaud identifier on the attached drive. I don't know why Toshiba were such assholes about this, because that really does irritate me, to be honest. You can actually enter setup or run diagnostics at any time by running test 3 from DOS. We could brood on such stupidity all day, but the machine makes up for it, simply because you're looking at all of this on an orange gas plasma display panel. Everything's better with one of these. It has a mild screen burn from what appears to be some kind of industrial application. Actually, we in fact know it is. Interesting thought just struck me. That says Carnaud Metalbox, Perry Wood. Well, actually, if you type that into Google, you get Worcester's Metalbox factory will close this summer with loss of 118 jobs. It seems to be from April 2013. 15th April 2013 was a Monday. Made cans for some of the biggest names in the food and drink industry. More than 100 jobs will be lost. The staff at Perry Wood Walk off Wilds Lane, there you go, Perry Wood Walk, have been given the devastating news the factory will be wound down over the next 3 months following a 90-day consultation. And in the past it made packaging for household brands including Heinz, Cadbury, KP, Bird's Eye, Pepsi, Coke and Frey Bentus. And there you go, that is quite possibly where this thing came from then. I don't know why else it would have that sticker on. We used to have a Metalbox factory just up the street from me, literally up the street, and my house used to back onto it where I used to live, because I've lived on the same estate most of my life. One of those people. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. You know, I had a suspicion it might have come from some industrial background. It has that smell to it. I don't know how many of you have dragged machines out of industrial places, but a lot of mine have come from industry, and they have a smell to them. You can sometimes tell what they did. This one smelled, I thought, like the ones I pulled out of WP Forgings, which no longer exists, but there was a local company that did metalwork. So I'm like, it smells similar. I wonder if it came out of a forge. No, but it looks like they made cans, so the metallic smell is probably correct. That also explains why it has the dark dust in there. So, or it did, I cleaned it out. There wasn't a lot, it actually was really, really clean. So there you go, that is probably where it came from. I've got one over there that smelt like onions. I don't know where that came from, but the ends of that black one. The motherboard in that smelt like onions. So, probably another industrial machine. That's pretty fascinating. So this thing was probably controlling the machine that made Coca-Cola cans. I wish the original hard drive was working. Well, 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 look where my laptop came from. Worcestershire, United Kingdom. I do believe what we have there, especially given it is the correct logo for a Carnaud Metalbox, as you can see right there. We've just got a machine that used to have something to do with making packaging for people's foods. My respect for it has increased dramatically. I like machines that have been used in industry, because machines that have done that, you know, fucking worked, and they've obviously been pretty reliable if they've been in service for that long. My guess is that's where it came from. Whether the bloke who sold it used to work there or not, I don't know. Maybe I could contact him and ask him, but that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So I've got one of Carnaud Metalbox's old laptops. So yeah, think about that next time you open a tin of spaghetti or something. Might have been, you know, somewhere down the line the machine might have been controlled by one of these T3200s like I've got. That's awesome. So there you go. But it's actually going away with time as I use it more, so it's barely noticeable. So maybe it wasn't real screen burn, it's entirely possible the pixels were just getting a bit lazy, but we don't tolerate laziness on this channel. To be honest, I'm quite happy to sit this thing on IRC or something and just watch the text crawl up the screen all day. It looks quite awesome. Toshiba sold these machines with their own versions of DOS 3.3 and DOS 401 as far as I know, but I've just used DOS 622 as it's really the best one, and I'm not interested in Toshiba's DOS versions. I don't really see any point. Also have Windows for Workgroups 3.1.1 installed. It's pretty much the normal, it just makes networking and file management easier. I don't use it for much else. It runs the same as you would expect it to run on a 386 of this speed, so it's just about usable, but you can't do anything silly with it. It plays solitaire and stuff just fine, I suppose. As for DOS, we can run all the expected programs without any hitches for the most part. The only place problems arise is in demos, because they often use modes the plasma panel can't display. You could always hook an external monitor up, I suppose. Crystal Dream also runs quite slowly with sound enabled, which is to be expected, and interestingly, when it does this, the music plays for longer, because I think it's quite a few people are aware that the music in Crystal Dream is actually longer than the demo when it's running in sync, which makes you think they probably did expect it to slow down on some machines like this. 386SXs were still quite common in the early 90s, in fact there were still quite a few 286s in circulation, mostly due to the aforementioned cost of computers back then. So as far as I'm concerned, the demo scales fine onto a machine this slow. It's still perfectly watchable. In games, the keypad can be a bit of a learning curve. Any game that uses a down arrow is going to end up with you dying because you pressed 5 instead of 2. Now that's a minor hiccup, and I could use an external keyboard if I really wanted to, I guess. It doesn't upset me that much. It's just a little bit of a learning curve when you're trying to use software that needs cursor keys. Obviously this thing has the novelty of Sound Blaster audio because of the ISA slot. That card you might have noticed is actually in the 8-bit slot. But all that does is forfeit the CD-ROM interface. You can actually do this with a few cards. You can just ignore the 16-bit connector at the back. The card will still work with the correct settings. For some reason, Commander Keen detects an EGA card in this machine. I only know one other card which does this, and that's Spear Showtime Plus, which is a real piece of shit. So don't bother with those. The plasma display is responsive. It's very responsive. They were much faster than LCD displays. In fact, they really still are. And yes, my XPS really is that dirty. That wasn't just a setup. I wish I could run Xeos on this display, but the system isn't powerful enough. In benchmarks, it scores okay. It seems about right for what it is anyway. NSSI tells us that we don't have much in the way of VGA RAM, only 256k, which seems about right. I mean, why you'd need any more with this display panel in DOS is questionable. I mean, you can't run 256 colour 640 by 480, that's out the question now, but why you would want that on such a slow machine, I don't know. It would have very limited applications. Interestingly, the software does detect a second hard drive. I don't understand that, nor do I plan to pretend to, as that would just be disinformation, which is another thing I'm sick to death of seeing in old computer type videos. Even I've done it before by accident, but the difference being I do it by accident because I'm just reading other people's misinformation and then repeating it because I don't know any better. At least I admit I'm in the wrong, and there's a lot of people out there could really benefit from learning to admit their own mistakes. The CPU comes out marginally above the average, I think. It's not really that far different to the Zenith, which is about correct. 286s in 16-bit are about the same as the 386. The advantage of the 386 is it can do 32-bit, and this one can. Obviously, it's a 386. The coprocessor in here can't break any of the baselines in NSSI, which is expected given the clock difference. The slowest one they have is 40 MHz, so yeah, we were never going to really catch up to that at less than half of the clock. Top Bench gives us a score very close to the Zenith. Actually, we're coming in slightly slower, which proves Top Bench is solely 16-bit, and I'm not criticising it, it's supposed to be. It also evidences how well Zenith did designing the Slim Sport. I'd love to know what they did to that. They really did squeeze a lot of performance out of that thing. And I had a feeling that this thing would come in slightly slower. It's also slower in 3D Bench, 14.3 versus 15.9. With such small numbers, this is quite noticeable. This thing's actually pretty average, to be honest. The Zenith is just unusually quick. I don't know what they did to the thing, sorcery I expect. The Toshiba's actually quite unresponsive when you try to exit 3D Bench, it's quite noticeable on this one. But like I say, this thing is pretty average. It's not a slow machine, it's just the one we're comparing it to is unusually quick here. Comparison ends when we call upon PCP Bench, because this thing can actually run it. I mean, if you can call that running, it does seem about right for a 386SX, so we're never going to blaze through the thing. We get 1.0 as our final score, which is respectable. I guess it ran the thing. It wasn't really designed to do stuff like that, I wouldn't have thought. Doom usually runs out of memory for some reason. It does that on my other 386, so I don't know. There's obviously some kind of issue with mapping RAM on these things. It's just something to do with Doom not liking 386s. Doom's not really playable on machines like this anyway. You really need a decent 486 for Doom. It's quite inefficient, to be honest. The only 386s it's playable on are faster ones with a vastly reduced screen size, and even then it depends on your definition of playable. I'm quite happy to sit there at about 12 frames per second. It doesn't really upset me that much, but some people find it intolerable. Quake's not possible, of course, so we can't run that either. Well, to be honest, I think I'm about done here. And this thing's quirky. It has strange design decisions, some of them absolutely stupid. And performance is really average. And I don't know, it's too heavy to really carry around all the time. It's not the most practical thing in the world, but there's just something awesome about it. It looks awesome, it feels awesome. There's just something about it that works, and it's one of them you can't place your finger on, but you just like it. It's one of those machines. So I'm glad I got it. It's a really neat piece of kit. And as long as you are getting in a car or a bus, it does let you lump a 386 around pretty easily. that you can annoy people outside of your own home with. And next time the machine we look at is going to be one that has already been used outside of my home, because hey, you know, what's the point in just running it in my house? I might as well slaughter some aliens and blast dead Kennedys while I'm eating my McDonald's, hadn't I? I suppose, well actually I can't. I was going to have a look at another machine, but I'm not going to. However, we are going to have a look at the case for this one. So, yeah, we'll take a really quick look at that, and just to see how well made it is. Because the case is just as important as the machine. If you're going to carry it around, you're going to need a case that's adequate for doing that job. So, we'll get the case over here and we'll take a look at it. I suppose before I get out of here, I should really have a look at the case and the manual. It feels pretty soft, the case. It's certainly not as well made as the Zenith case was, but it's lasted this long and it's kept the machine safe enough, I guess. It has a normal pouch on the front and 2 floppy disk pockets, so it's pretty basic, but it seems to be more than adequate. This part on the handle's pretty good anyway, because it makes the system much more comfortable to carry around. It's a lot softer than the one on the Zenith, so it's not aged as well, but hey, it's working. It's done its job, and it's done it very well. So we can't really flaw the case at all. Nothing wrong with it. It is starting to fry up a bit in there though, so longevity not as good, but certainly more than enough. The manual is actually excellent. I've got to hand it to Toshiba on this one. It doesn't contain all the nice pinouts like the Zenith manual did, but it does contain a table for ASCII, a few other technical bits of information. It does have these little fold out things, and these are pretty good because you can use them either as a bookmark or just so you have a figure of something to reference when you're reading the manual. It's actually quite useful. Of course it has a sales bit in it, which I like because it's trying to sell us expansions. I don't like it because it's trying to sell me stuff. I like it because it gives me a look at things that I don't have. And I like looking at computer hardware. I find it quite entertaining. That's what I do in my spare time. I read and mess about with computer hardware. I haven't got anything else to do. So, there you go. But you might notice this is one thing that's really good. Those are in colour. All these fold-out pieces are actually printed in colour. Of course, the construction of the manual is that binder type construction. It was very common at the time. All the information you'd ever need is in here. You'd certainly be able to refer to this if you're having problems with the machine as an average user, I would have thought. It wouldn't be any harder than anything else involving using a computer as an average user back then, as they were still pretty alien to a lot of people. I can remember how stupid people were. Most notably, I think, was when Windows 95 came around and the illegal operation message came up. Around here, at least, it was not uncommon for people to start panicking, thinking policemen were going to break their front door down, and I never really bothered to correct them. So Toshiba, on that one, yes. The manual is another thing which makes up for things like the stupid bias. So, very, very high quality, this manual. I'm very impressed by that. That is something you will never see today. And why, I imagine cost, to be honest. I imagine I know why, but it does make me rather sad inside to think that they don't do this anymore. Well, then overall, it's actually a pretty good machine. There are some idiotic design decisions, like I said, and this plagues Toshiba machines from any era. I don't understand what it is with them. They make great stuff, and they always have some little thing that messes it up, but this thing's got so much more going for it that it just more than makes up for it. It just feels right using this one. There's just something about it that kind of works. And like I said, it looks awesome, and it's essentially a portable 386, and a 386 you can carry around with you is never going to be a bad thing if it works, and it does work. It all works fine. You know, it's just that they made some very unusual decisions. That manual, though, that is pretty awesome. You don't usually see that much effort put in, and I definitely don't think you would now. And I actually had another Toshiba machine to look at today, because I don't think it deserves a video of its own. You know, it wouldn't be long enough. And yeah, I know I filmed this whole thing off the screen, so if you have a problem with that, then well, I'm sorry, but I figured I'd do the whole thing off the plasma screen. I don't think it mattered too much in this one. We weren't really looking at anything in particular that was unique to it, so I figured the plasma screen was probably, it was quite a novelty to look at the gas plasma display. Maybe you don't agree, in that case I apologise. But what we're going to have a look at was my first laptop ever, and that is a T1200XE. This isn't completely original now, it's sort of half and half mine and some random one from Italy I got that was not entirely working, but they were both broke in different ways, and they allowed me to make one working laptop. However, it's developed a new problem, and that is that it won't run its hard drive at all. And so I'll just discuss what's in there and what it does. So this T1200XE, you know, I don't think we'll bother doing a video on it then. I'll mend it, but I mean, if you really want a video doing, ask me, I'll appendix it on a different one. It has this mechanism to hold the screen down, which isn't quite as strong as the Zenith. They're from about the same time. They appear in the same editions of InfoWorld and such from the time period, both classed as notebooks, and both in the same price range, though this seems to often cost just a little more than the Zenith. So what are you getting for your extra money? Well, you're getting something that is, you know, it's got heritage from a legendary device. The original T1200, back in the 1980s, had an 8088 in it, and well, actually it was pretty terrible, but that's not just that was terrible. It's laptops at the time that weren't very good yet. They were built for a very limited set of purposes, and they just barely managed to scrape through. They were absolutely awful. They had a calculator kind of display on them, and I have no desire to own one. Basically, they're cool for their historical value and stuff. And if you collect that stuff, that's brilliant. And I'm not really a portable guy. I've just got a few because I'm like, well, I like these, but I'm not really into portables. I just wanted a few to mess with and to drag around with me when I go other places, which is great. Blast some fucking DOS game, you know, annoying ad-lib music at everybody and blow shit up. That's the way to do things. But you won't be doing any of that on here. Toshiba's T1200XE has a 12 MHz 286, so it's slower than the Zenith on the processor side of things. It has a pretty ridiculous keyboard layout because the Alt key is actually at the bottom left, the Control key is sort of up here where caps lock would usually be. Well, that sucked. I'm not filming it again, I'm running out of memory card, and that camera's a bastard to work with, and it sets the card to read only. But yeah, the keyboard layout's pretty ridiculous, but that's the least you worries, because both motherboards I've got, the keyboard control doesn't work properly, so I'm guessing that's a running thing with them. I thought it was just one of them because a battery had leaked in it, but now guessing Toshiba just used shitty components on that. The plastic for these is paper thin, it's not as thick as the Zenith at all. You can actually see that in the recess around the screen here. It's very thin plastic, I'd say only about 3mm at most. So it does weigh quite a bit though, it is quite a heavy laptop. Apparently it's a whole pound lighter than the Zenith, but I don't know what conditions these were weighed under, and this feels heavier to me, although there's not much in it. It may just be down to me not having a case and the handle being a bit spindly, but if you have one, don't recommend using that, because I've seen them go brittle and break off around here, so just watch out for that. You wouldn't want to drop one. And I don't know what that's for. I might have had, never found out. I don't have the manual. The batteries, the two I've got, have bulged, you know, they've bulged out and leaked all over the place, so those don't work anymore. So we know it was using the better quality batteries. It does have a modem, serial, socket for a keypad, proprietary of course, printer or floppy drive, so it's probably the same kind of interface the T32 has. And we'll have a closer look at this socket here. This is the big letdown for me right here. This is the cause of most of the problems. Because what are we looking at? Other than the fact that every one of these I've ever seen has had its flap closed off because they didn't put very good hinges on like Zenith. We'll have a look at them in a second. That's a 9-pin TTL output. This has a Toshiba graphics adapter in it. That's what they call it themselves. I'm quoting them. It's CGA compatible, so that is limited to CGA. It does still have the cover for the expansion port. I guess that is for an expansion chassis. It's a very large port. It's a very big one. The hinges they used were, you can see, very small and flimsy. There is a hole for one there, and that would probably be why all those seem to have broken off. Speaker in these is also a lot quieter, which may be a good thing to you, I don't know. And the other things we have, they have the exact same hard drive as the Zenith. It's another cheese pizza drive. You know, they had a real thing for those back then, and I'm always going to call them those from now on. But yeah, the display on this is a blue one. It's blue and white, inverted. You can't flip it to normal operation. Now, I want to explain something about that, because it is technically a good idea to display black as white on one of these older displays like this. I don't know whether it applies to the technology we use now, but on these, when it's displaying white, the gate isn't actually, you know, closed in the screen. Any given gate, and it's not, well, bloody hell. Anyway, it's not having to use electricity to keep that pixel active. So, you know, what we're doing is, by that, obviously you're going to use less power, and that's great when you're on a battery. Now, the Zenith, you have, like, BIOS profiles, in effect. There's 3 different modes of operation, so you can change the video inversion state, so it can be more conservative when we're running on battery, and we can just burn power when we're running on the mains, because, hey, what does it matter then? It's only going to take longer to charge. Can't do that. There's no profiles on this, and there's no option to reverse the screen colours back to normal, so MS-DOS always has a white background. Has one advantage on the machine, is XMS memory is provided by the inbuilt 1MB instead of EMS, so you can run Windows on this from the get-go if it wants that. Windows 3.1 usually does, as far as I know. I don't think it runs without it. And this display, though, that is a real letdown, because, yeah, sure, it's CGA, so it's never going to be as good, but the resolution's quite low on it, and it doesn't display shades. It's blue or white. There's no in-between. It doesn't display 32 shades of anything. It's 2 shades, on or off, and they're the only ones for each pixel. So it does honestly look a lot like you're running your applications on a backlit calculator. It's nowhere near as good overall, I would say. And internally, I'd love to take it apart and show you, but it's a pain in the ass to disassemble. Internally, it's a mess. If you've ever worked on one of these, absolutely fucking horrible. Everything's bolted to everything else, and there's no structural integrity. You know, there's screws that seem to go through things, but they don't seem to enhance the strength of it. They're nowhere near as good. Keyboard feels about the same. It's like, felt a little cheaper, but no. So if I didn't have nostalgia and sentimental value for this, I'd probably despise it. As it is, though, I've just bashed on this thing, but I'm actually really glad to have it back, and I am going to fix the problem that's come up. I don't know what's happened. It's probably just come loose or something, but I'm in no mood to fix it today. And I'm hungry. I've gone past mealtime filming this, and I miss a meal. I start feeling crap, and my temper goes south. But no, don't think I hate this thing. I don't. I probably would if I hadn't owned one. If it hadn't been the first laptop I'd ever had, I'd probably absolutely hate it. But you can run CGA stuff on here, and it does its job. It's considerably slower than the Zenith. The Zenith set probably an unfairly high baseline, but whatever they did with that thing was absolutely fucking awesome. This isn't a bad laptop. It's actually pretty average for the time, you know, and it's lasted long enough. You know, they've got through it with only hard drive failures, and the floppy drives probably would still work, but they're belt driven, and the belts have failed. So I don't know where I'm going to get another one. Honestly, belt driven floppies, they're really clunky and inelegant compared to what Zenith were using. So no, I think it's just the Zenith's really above average for its time, and it's set me an unfairly high baseline in the years since I last used one of these. But like I say, they're okay enough, and if you wanted a CGA laptop, they probably would have got the job done. And the battery did used to work on mine, and you could run them on batteries. They were fine, you know, when they worked. Could you expect them to last this long? Well, no, it'd be over 20 years old now, so let's cut it some slack, I suppose. You know, not everybody's gonna, you know, not everybody's going to make a battery that's going to last that long. It's just whoever did Zenith's batteries, again, were way above average for some reason. I'm sounding like a Zenith fanboy, and after this, hey, maybe I'll become one. No, it's not like, I don't do the whole fanboy thing. I just gravitate towards whatever works best for me. And unfortunately, in this case, the Zenith works better. But hey, this thing does have a more intelligent power supply, does have better memory, and it has a few advantages over it, I suppose. Even if it is harder to work on and less capable, there are a few pluses to running this, so it's not a total loss. And the design still had some amount of thought put into it. It's more than you can say for modern laptops, for the most part. Some of them out there are absolutely brilliant, you know, but you really have to pay a lot for them, because we had to pay a lot for any laptop back then. So no, there you go, that's as much as we'll look at it. If you want a video doing on it when I've fixed it, let me know, and yeah, I'll appendix it on something else. Next time then, you know what, I'll move the camera first. Well then, the chances are that next time around we're going to have a look in the smaller case, at the smaller portable. Yeah, that wasn't it. You know, that doesn't have a case. I've no case for that, never had one. Maybe one existed at some time in the past, and I can't tell you how I acquired this one, but you know, if there was a case, it got missed, basically. Who knows where it is now, it might still be there. But yeah, the smaller one, we'll have a look at that next time around. We'll see what's in there, you know, we'll see what's in that case. That machine is pretty good, I can tell you that much. I really like that one. It's a fantastic little portable system. And somebody's asked me, and they're not the first person, will I have a look at the Pentium 2? Hell yeah, I'll have a look at the Pentium 2. I've never done that. Why have I never done that? My first ever video on this channel was on a Pentium 2. A lot of DOS footage came off of Pentium 2 early on. I like Pentium 2. Pentium 2s are fucking awesome machines. Like, you pair one with the right graphics card on the right motherboard, they go blisteringly fast. Like, you can outrun a bloody Pentium 3 on it if you set it up right. They're absolutely ridiculous. I played the first Call of Duty on one because it ran it faster than my Pentium D. And granted, a lot of that was probably down to the shitty FireGL card I had in there back then, because you couldn't get PCI Express cards anywhere when I built that thing. But yeah, I played that on a Pentium 2. It ran nice. So yeah, we'll look at the Pentium 2 somewhere down the line. And this year, I might break my silence on something, which might be relevant to the Pentium 2 at some point. I might have to break my silence on something, because I swore years ago I would never ever do a video on any 3DFX hardware. Ever. Would not happen. Well, it might happen this year, but I don't know what the video is going to be like yet. Because I'm getting sick to death of people, but it's great, you know, shoving it on me. I don't give a fuck. I want nothing to do with it. You know, I've distanced myself from that crap. It doesn't work. It's horrid. Like, you're too young to remember. It's like, no, the reason I don't like it is because I was there and I fucking remember. Because I was the poor fucker who was like, no, he can fucking work with computers, get him to do it. You know, oh, he's a mate of so-and-so's, he won't charge us any money for it. Joke's on you, I did used to charge people money for it. Didn't like it when I took the machine back, give me 20 quid. No, why should? Because I had to buy you a fucking graphics card, you idiot. You know, it doesn't come for free. Fucking assholes. But anyway, yeah, I was the poor fucker who was at the time. Why won't my computer run this? Because you're using... Well, what's in there? Oh, that's probably why. We'll pull that out and we'll put you a nice ATI in there. You know, or a nice NVIDIA, depending on when it was. You know, we'll get that in there. Now you can run all them games. Yeah, check that out. Isn't that a lot better? Oh, look, actually, that DVD drive's actually useful for something now. Because either the card I've put in is capable of decoding them, or we can actually fit a decoder card in there, because I'm not using all the slots up with pointless crap. But I'm like, right, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe they were brilliant, and I just happened to run into a long string of machines that just weren't very good at running them for some fucking reason. As yet, I've started testing an original Voodoo card. Well, it's an Orchid one. I've got a TechWorks one. I might swap it out for that. Because the Orchid one's terrible. But they don't look that different, so I don't really think that there's going to be any improvement. But hey, we'll try. And maybe when I'm done with it, I'll try Voodoo 2 on something. I'm never going to slide them, that's stupid, that's impractical. I'm not doing that. I shouldn't have to do that. That's fucking silly. I don't play with Sly now, I'm not going to play with Sly in the 90s. You know, I come from a machines at a practical cost approach. You know, I don't do stupid shit like that. It doesn't usually offer that much advantage in my mind. Maybe it did back then, I don't know, but we'll never find out because I'm not doing that. It's a waste of money. So we'll find out how good those are. Maybe then a Voodoo 3. And if I've been wrong all these years, I'll make a video and I'll title it, I'm an idiot, I was wrong, 3DFX is awesome. But at the moment, I don't think that's going to happen. If it does though, then you have my word, I will do that. Chances are, though, I'm probably going to find it's the same crap and it's still going to blue screen like it already has, corrupt my operating system like it already has, and just generally be a really crap graphics card, which it already is. So, yeah, but I'll try, I'll give it a go, I'll give it one last try, but if this don't work out, I'm never playing with it again, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to think it's rubbish, and you're never going to change my mind on it. It obviously doesn't work for me. As a last note, I've been thinking about putting a blog on my web server, like public. I'll put a link to that in the description. Yeah, I'll make it public and probably update every once in a while. I was thinking maybe I could put some videos on there that don't warrant, you know, rattling people's fucking subscription boxes on YouTube. Most of which probably just be me sat in front of the camera telling you a load of crap. You know, I can tell you things I did in the past, probably regarding computers and stuff mostly. You know, maybe I could tell you about where I used to work or something, or just random crap like that. So then it'd have videos over there that wouldn't actually be available on YouTube. Even though it'd be on YouTube, it'd be unlisted. So there's stuff like that, and obviously just textual and image posts like, oh, I've got this piece of hardware, or, well, this broke today, so I've tried fixing it, and this is what's on it, and so how I did it, and shit like that. So you could just check in that every now and then if I'm not making videos. It's a lot easier to update that every once in a while, and I feel like I'm not wasting people's time because I have to choose to go there. Even though you have to choose to click on a video, I don't know, I feel better about doing it that way, because it's probably a lot easier for you to ignore. Anyway, I've probably got seconds of memory card left, so yeah, I've got plans for stuff, but damn, it's fucking hard work, because, well, you know full well, we're relying on a Pentium 3. I think that thing deserves a fucking hell of a lot of respect, because we're fucking still doing this in HD on 1990s technology. Yeah, fucking eat that, you people with all your fancy Xeon rendering rigs and stuff. I'm still getting there, it just takes me a lot longer. It's fucking rubbish. And yeah, some people have offered me parts, and thank you, but no, you haven't offered me anything that's really a step forward. And I don't want you to. I won't. I'll never accept it. So don't start offering me better stuff either. I'm not going to accept it. But thanks to the people who did. I do appreciate. I'm just crap at accepting things. It's one of the reasons I fucking hate Christmas. I have deep-seated issues, obviously. Oh well, I've got no problem admitting that. I've got issues. You've probably got issues somewhere. I have no problems pointing out my own flaws. I'm quite good at it anyway. I'm running out of memory card. I've got seconds left. I'm high treason. Thanks for watching. I'm getting out of here. I've already said thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.